Hi, Zach.
Hi there. How's it going?
Okay. I have the window air conditioner on behind me. Can you hear it?
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, that's good. Martin. So I'll do my welcomes and then turn it over to you to tell people how they're going to see the timer and all that.
Gotcha. And just for the applicants who are in right now, I will promote you to panelists when your application comes up on the agenda. So no need to worry about that. We see you and we'll be able to make sure you're able to present and speak.
It looks like we have 7 attendees so far.
Yep.
How many have anybody indicated? Hi, Martin.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Has anybody indicated? Hi, Chris. Speaking about Arnold Street.
Arnold Street?
Yeah, isn't that the project where the company wants to store the heavy equipment? Isn't that Arnold Street?
Oh no, that's Anderson Drive. Sorry.
Anderson.
No, it's okay. No, the only 2 people that have signed up to speak are for the first application. So none of the other applications have had speakers who've wanted to sign up yet. I mean, again, we might get messages during the meeting just requesting to sign up to speak. So we'll see, but not so far. We sent it out to the town clerk for Colony as well as the planning director. So we'll see if either of them attends or not.
Okay. Is Brad on? I see a planning department host. Is that Brad?
That's me. So I will rename myself so I'm not as decoy.
Hi, Roman. Need to unmute yourself. Roman and Chris are still muted.
Not sure my volume is up. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, I can't hear.
So Glenisa said that she wasn't going to be able to make the meeting tonight. So I think whenever
She cannot
Roman
make the meeting tonight?
She cannot make the meeting tonight. And it looks like Roman's relogging on. So I think once Roman's back, everyone will be here who needs to be here.
And it's just 6 o'clock, it looks like, coming up.
Yep.
Yeah. We have 14 people, 15 signed in. 16.
Some of those are applicants too, but
Yep. Yeah, I see Linda McFarland there, Stephanie Ferrandino. Okay. I think we're ready. Roman, are you all set? Martin, you're all set?
Yes.
I can use dessert, but I'm okay.
Chris, are you all set? Can you hear us? I don't see, Chris isn't responding. He may not be in the room.
Your speaker on.
Oh, there we go. Hi, Chris. Just want to make sure you were up and running.
Yeah, I am. A little bit of difficulty, but I'm here.
Yeah. Well, I see your handsome face, but since it's a photograph, there we go. I just want to make sure you were there. Okay, you want to get everybody in Zach, and we'll start the meeting. Tell me when you're ready.
I'm all set to go.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is, I'm getting I am getting a feedback. Let me try that again. Okay, sounds like we're okay now. Good evening, everybody. This is a meeting of the Albany City Planning Board for July 28th. And we have planning board members available, including Christopher Ellis, Roman Kuchera, Martin Hall, and Al DeSalvo, and the chair. We have one planning board member who was unable to make it to this evening, but we definitely have a quorum. Also with us is Zach Powell, senior planner and staff member for the Albany City Planning Department. We have 3 items on the agenda, all of which the planning board and the public have seen in prior appearances, both in workshop form and in public meetings. The format of the evening is that the applicants will have 10 minutes to present their proposals, and after that, the planning board will ask questions to the applicants. Following that, we will take testimony from the public. The public has 3 minutes to speak, unless a member of the public is a city common council member. Since they represent a larger area, they have 6 minutes to speak. Then the planning staff will present its recommendations. And in some cases, the recommendations may be before the public testimony. That depends on the issue. And then if there's any clarifications or problems in some of the testimony, the applicants have a chance to rebut that. Zach Powell will now tell you how the timing will work for the 3-minute and 6-minute periods that the public and what common council members have.
Yep. Thanks, Al. So what I'll do is I'll put a timer on the screen, and depending on whether you're a member of the public or a common council member, you'll get your respective either 3 or 6 minutes. There'll be a warning at the 30-second mark that'll show up on the screen, and there'll be an audible warning for anyone who's attending the meeting via phone or can't use their screen. And there'll be an alarm that will go off once your time is up. If I have 2 people on the speakers list so far, so if you've not signed up and you do want to speak on an application, feel free to send me a message in the chat box so I can put you on the list. It'll make it easier for us to go through the list if we have people ahead of time. but we understand that comments might come up as the presentation goes along.
Okay. So now we will begin. First item on the agenda is ZMA 0007. This is an application for a large multi-purpose project. Address known as 76 2nd Avenue. The board and public has seen this project at prior workshops and also at last month's meeting, which was held on June 22nd. The purpose tonight is to make a recommendation to the Albany Common Council for a zoning map amendment. The amendment would be to amend the zoning map and the area of the subject properties from RT Townhouse and Mixed Use Neighborhood Edge, MUNE, to Mixed Use Campus Institutional. Okay. Do we have the applicants to address this?
Yes, we do. I would just ask Kelsey and Jim Garrison to unmute themselves so we can quickly move through the presentation. Zach, go ahead with the next one. We're going to bounce between speakers like we did last time. So when we were before you on June 22nd, we reviewed in pretty much detail each and every of the zoning amendment standards that you see reflected here. Go on to the next slide. There are also two additional standards that accompany a map amendment, and those are articulated here. And I think the one we'll probably be concentrating most on tonight's presentation is A, which is compatibility with existing and proposed uses. On to the next slide. Kelsey, you want to handle this one?
Sure. So as we said, we're here tonight for the recommendation on the zoning map amendment. But before we get to this, there's one quick update that we wanted to talk through. So based upon feedback from the planning department regarding property ownership, and also to remain sensitive to the owners of 84 and 86 2nd Ave, we have decided to withdraw the district plan application for the project. And instead, we've shifted gears to a development plan review application for phase 1 construction. And this will now fall under jurisdiction of the planning board. And so with that application that was submitted last week, we've provided detailed design for phase 1, as well as 2 versions of an overall master plan that show a design for phase 2, both with and without those 2 properties. And then phase 2 will then be subject to a separate development plan review. And so our hope is that the review of the development plan, demolition, and conditional use permit applications for phase 1 can begin concurrently with the Common Council's continued review of the zoning map amendment, knowing that the approval of the amendment must occur before the others can be approved. Next.
So as you see here, as Kelsey was talking about, we have two phases for development. And so phase 1 are the 3 buildings that are shaded in gray on this slide. And phase 2 is what we're calling building A. It's going to actually be built last. I'm not sure why it's A, but there are 2 different versions of that. On the left is, I guess, our A, which is the large building that we would like to build, but we don't have 2 of the properties under our ownership or control. That's 84 and 86 2nd Avenue. And so the proposed plan on the right shows those 2 properties highlighted in red and a reduced building A. Again, building A is going to be the second phase of development. We're going to build buildings B, C, and D first. And we have been attempting to engage the owners of those 2 properties in dialogue. They haven't been interested in having direct communication, although we've reached out on a few occasions, but we absolutely understand their right to remain in their properties and are proposing construction around those properties if they choose to remain. Again, this is further into the future. it's the second phase of development. So we're talking maybe 2022, 2023. Go on to the next. Got to unmute yourself.
So now we want to quickly just talk through how we've designed the site and also adjusted the design of the site to mitigate impacts to the surrounding properties, the neighborhood, as well as existing infrastructure. So when it comes to construction, it will be modular development. And so that will greatly reduce the construction timeline. It will have decreased impacts related to noise. And then when it comes to the excavation for the foundations, as soon as that excavation is completed and the podium is all set, those modules will then just be stacked, and that can occur during the winter with limited impacts. And then specifically with 84 and 86 Second Ave and those homeowners that would like to remain, our design team is very experienced in urban construction. So we will do everything to create a proper design so that we will prevent any impacts to those structures. We'll also document the existing conditions to make sure that there are no changes that occur over time. And then just another piece that is that we do anticipate that we will be creating roughly 1,000 construction jobs with this development, and modular construction will reduce that requirement slightly, but we will make up for that with the sustainable aspects of the development. And then there will also be an additional 150 full-time jobs created. Next slide.
And so with the mitigation of impacts, one of the things that your board asked us to do was to reduce that building A structure in the front along 2nd Avenue to 6 stories. And I believe it was the chair who recommended that we take that story and move it to the second building, building B, which we've done here. And so this just provides you with a quick roadmap as to the height of each structure. And each structure will have multiple stories, and the lower stories are highlighted in red. Go ahead, Zach. And so this is the building as it is designed currently. Next. And so on this structure, we know that new projects have impacts. We've studied them and we've provided you with reports with regard to the shadow study. We've demonstrated that there's no direct impact because of our proximity to established historic resources. And we've shown you visualization to allow you to see the transformation of this area. What we're doing is reducing the number of vacant and aging structures which are currently located on property that we own or control. And we're replacing them with the structures that you see shown here. We believe that transformation of an area generally spreads. And one of the benefits of it to the surrounding properties is that we're going to be retaining residents of the South End. Here, we are going to be increasing property values, not only to the properties that will be transforming, but also to surrounding properties. And we think that owners of those properties who choose to remain may choose to actually start making more investment in their own properties, investments that maybe they wouldn't have done previously because it would have been speculative whether they could get their properties investments back out. We'll also be increasing the services available to residents in the surrounding properties by providing necessary community benefits within walkable areas. We're talking about jobs, we're talking about food, we're talking about salons, daycare, and STEM education. We're also going to be increasing the patronage for existing buildings because we'll have more people located at the 76 who will be utilizing those services. And certainly we're going to retain residents who we've heard in the community meetings haven't always wanted to stay in the South End for various reasons, but in part because there wasn't quality affordable housing located in close proximity. Next slide. Jim, do you want to take these next two?
Sure. Well, this is the mix of units in the project, and I think you've seen this before, but we have, I think we're at 243 total units, but you see there's a mix of 3-bedroom units, penthouse units, studio units, 1-bedrooms and 2s. And if we go to the next slide, you can see that the if you go to the next image, you can see the way, it's a little hard to see, but this is a very innovative unit. It basically, in the sort of beige color, you see the outlines of a 2-bedroom unit, and in the gray color to the left, you see the outline of a studio, a small, very, very compact, so micro studio. Those two units are joined by a vestibule. It says flexible vestibule down here. And the idea is that these can be detached. You can have an elderly parent or teenagers on their way out of the house staying here, or you can use it as a master if you need a 3-bedroom apartment. So it's meant to allow flexibility over time and allow the building to fulfill a lot of housing needs.
Okay, so on this next slide, one of the questions that the staff provided to us was the impact on surrounding resources. This project is going to impact the surrounding properties. I think what the staff was getting at is the height going to be different? Visually, will it look different? Might there be a 7-second delay in the traffic from what it exists now? And we say a huge yes to all of that. There are going to be impacts related to the construction. That's necessary in every revitalization project. There are also going to be huge benefits to the neighboring properties that run with these impacts. Things you can only get with significant investment and with a revitalization project. And those things include jobs and walkable access to food and services, daycare, and meeting not one, but each and every goal that is articulated in the Albany 2030 plan. We're going to be creating safe, livable neighborhoods. We're going to provide model education systems in our STEM program. This will become a vibrant urban center. There'll be multimodal transportation, green city aspects that I think are going to put Albany on the map across the nation for the type of green infrastructure that ought to occur, and also will be contributing to prosperous economy. Not one of these goals could be achieved with the land as it's presently zoned, not one. And not one goal would be able to be reached with a townhouse zoning or with a mixed use neighborhood edge zoning. We are going to be providing much needed neighborhood resources. And one of the things that you'll see on the right are all of the different community resources that will be part of the 76 project. And these were not selected based on return on investment. And in fact, many of these types of uses are things that you'll see in lower commercial rent districts. You'll see them in strip malls, you'll see them in aging commercial structures. Things like daycare and dry cleaning and salons are not the things that go into shiny new buildings. The South End Development team, and I got to tell you, this is a very unique opportunity where you've got two gentlemen who grew up in the South End who are passionate and care about it. They selected the commercial uses based on community need, not the impact on their return on investment. Go ahead to the next one. And these are the types of community resources that are necessary to create a vibrant community. It's food in close walking distance, it's co-work space, it's educational and daycare opportunities. Next slide. We're also going to have an impact on surrounding properties, including Crankbait Park. And the SED owners have already started discussions with neighboring partners who utilize the park or who benefit from the park in order to begin the discussions with regard to improvements that we think should be necessary and should occur here, and also the management of Crankbait Park so that this vital resource in the surrounding area becomes a much more vibrant community area. Next slide.
So we received a few comments from the planning staff on the submitted traffic, parking demand, and transportation demand management plan. And these were mentioned in the July workshop. But in response to those comments, we've actually made a few adjustments to the plan and have submitted a revised report. But the first comment was in regard to a change in the peak PM level of service for the northbound approach of the intersection of Leonard Street and 2nd Ave. And so in order to reduce this concern, we've actually redistributed the site access points so that all of the loading operations will occur on Leonard Street and the 2 phase 1 parking access drives will now enter from Crank Street. And by doing so, the delay at the intersection in question is actually less than 10 seconds. And so when it comes to the change in the level of service, this will actually only be triggered by phase 2 of the development, which again will be subject to a separate development plan review. But that would be phase 2 if we are able to develop the full building A option. Next slide. There was also a comment about the calculation for the parking quantity, and there was one mistake that we had related to the community center use. And so we've gone back and adjusted that, and that actually increased the required quantity of our off-street parking by 3 spaces. And so we will have 13 spaces shy of what is required. However, as we've discussed previously, we'll have an extensive transportation demand management plan that will promote the use of alternative transportation. So we really think that there'll be less of a reliance on single occupancy vehicles. Next slide. There's also a comment related to the proximity to transit credit. And so as you guys know, the CDTA is proposing the new River Corridor Bus Rapid Transit line, and that will be, we have confirmed that that will be operational in November of this year. And so that will provide a stop interval better than 10 minutes prior to completion of phase 1 construction. So we do ask that we would be allowed to apply that proximity to transit credit for our off-street parking. Next slide. As we've discussed, we are targeting to hit the highest levels of sustainability with triple net zero design. And so I want to just quickly take a dive into the benefits that that will have on the existing public infrastructure in the area. Next slide. So this chart provides a comparison of the demand for electricity and water, as well as the generation for stormwater and waste. So the first column here, the current demand and generation, are based on the 14 existing structures that are currently on the property. And then the next column is for the peak demand and generation for full build out of the 32 parcels included, assuming 2 family homes would be constructed. And so these numbers are conservative because technically the 5 second F properties could be upgraded to other commercial uses under the current MUNE zoning. And then the last column is obviously for the 76 development, which is based upon roughly 50,000 square feet of commercial and 239 residential units. So as you can see, just comparison of the 13 units versus our larger development, we will actually be reducing the electricity demand to 0 through the renewable energy sources. The water demand we have minimized to a minimum amount that is required by the state to be pulled from a public water source. So basically that's the minimum amount of drinking water that is required. And then stormwater will be reduced to 0 by 100% reuse on site. And waste will also be reduced to 0 because we'll be eliminating 100% from the landfills. Next. So when it comes to net zero energy, we will be seeking a certification through the International Living Future Institute, which mandates that all energy to support the development must be produced on site. So this chart here shows all of the renewable energy sources that will be applied in the top row, and then the demands that have been greatly reduced through energy efficient technologies. And then the end result will be a net positive energy generation, which will be returned to the grid. Next slide. Net zero water, this is truly a holistic approach, but we will first reduce the potable water demand through water efficient fixtures, and then we will maximize water reuse, in which 100% of the rainwater will be captured and reused on site. And then in addition, 100% of the gray water and black water will be treated on site. A portion will be reused for gray water applications, and then the remaining will be discharged to the new separate storm sewer at a controlled rate. Next slide. And so as the project is currently designed, a minimum of 2.55 million gallons per year of stormwater will be eliminated from the combined sewer, which in and of itself is a really great benefit. However, in line with the truly high sustainability goals of the project, we're also working closely with the water department to evaluate other potential offsite improvements that can really provide a greater impact. And so this figure here just shows some of the adjacent watersheds that we're evaluating. And with those, and in partnership with some improvement projects with the water department, we have the potential to eliminate an additional 21.5 million gallons per year of stormwater from the combined sewer. Next slide. And lastly, when it comes to net zero waste, the on-site waste will be collected in a multi-stream approach with a waste handling room with designated chutes for recycling, bagged compost, and remaining solid waste on each floor of each of the buildings. And the residents will actually use a key fob to access those chutes, and all of the waste that is deposited will be weighed and tracked, and we'll be able to use that data to develop a program to incentivize waste reduction. So on-site overall, we'll be maximizing the reuse and recycling programs. We'll be providing educational opportunities for unique applications and reuse. We will remove the waste handling burden from the City Department of General Services. And then the end result will be that 100% of waste will be diverted from landfills. Next slide.
So this is the project that's the 76, and this is the conclusion slide. The South End, as you know, has needed a jumpstart for decades. The city has recognized that. And this jumpstart could not be achieved with townhouse zoning, and it couldn't be achieved even with neighborhood edge. A project of this magnitude has the power to bring about great change, but change that this city has stated is necessary. Is it going to look different? Yes. Will it feel the same? No. Will there be some downsides? Absolutely. I guarantee that there are going to be construction impacts. But the upside will be that this is the first project the city of Albany has seen that has the power to transform an entire area and meet each and every goal that the city has articulated. We would ask you to join us in support of this zoning amendment with your vote tonight. We're happy to answer any questions, and we have the full team available to do so.
Thank you very much. Board members, do you have questions to the applicants?
Now, today we are just, we're just going to act on the recommendation for the zoning change, right? We'll have a whole separate process, as we talked about earlier, for accepting the site plan, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
You'll see much more of us.
Okay, good.
Lots of quality time together.
Yeah, that's an important point. There will be, I'm sure, a lot of detail that we will go through when we see the project and have to act through the development plan process. But right now, our duty is to make a recommendation to the Common Council and to the people who are listening from the public. The Common Council has the power to either change the zoning or not change it. We are only making a recommendation. That is the power of the planning board. But the Common Council is the major body that can change the zoning ordinance. So also then I would ask again if there's any other questions or comments to the applicant. Okay. Zach, are there folks who would like to speak to the issue of zoning change?
Yeah, give me just 1 second because someone else just signed up. So
While you're doing that, I would remind the public that you have 3 minutes and that you should address the question of the zoning change, not the actual plan itself. That will be done at a future date.
So the first speaker on the list is James Dunberg. Mr. Dunberg, are you there? Mr. and Mrs. Dunberg, are you there? Are you there, Mr. and Mrs. Dunberg?
I see in the chats that they're here.
Yeah, so Mr. and Mrs. Dunberg, we can't hear you. Your mic on our end is on. So I'm not sure why we can't hear you. What I'll do is I'll go to the next two speakers, and then we'll figure something out in the meantime. And feel free, yeah, we'll be back in just a sec. So the next speaker on the list is Jessica Gorman. Jessica, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks. I live on Elmendorf Street, which is directly across Crank Park from the proposed project. My concerns about changing the zoning actually do get into some specifics of the plan, but I don't know that there's a way to separate it. My concerns are primarily about traffic, parking, and also, frankly, the water issue. The population of the Crank Park Cherry Hill neighborhood is actually, which this would be a part of, is actually only about 600 people per the last kind of amalgamation of census data that I was able to find. And that is almost entirely residential townhouse. This project, based on what I just added, the new numbers, which are different than what I found from the project, would basically add 50% to the population of this neighborhood. There are on this side of Crank Park, and this is the First Avenue side, and then actually up even on Cherry Hill Street, there are, my neighbor and I have been here, I've been here a decade, my neighbor's been here even longer. There are two people down on First Avenue and Cherry Hill who have been here literally decades. One of them, her grandmother built the house. We've made significant investments into our home, and that extends all the way up to the hill and on McCarty. This is a very residential neighborhood. And I'm certainly all for good, thoughtful development and anything that's environmentally friendly. I have real concerns about a significant traffic impact. The change that was mentioned today to shifting parking entrances to Crank Street, everything on Crank Street that will not belong to 76 project is the charter school, baseball fields, and then Crank Park. So we're talking about tons of kids, and then you're going to add an absolute minimum of 386 based on the bedrooms. That's not including the significant commercial activities that they have planned. We're talking all day long. There's absolutely no place for these cars to go other than cutting through First Avenue or around Crank Park. And there's no place for these cars to park. I'm a huge environmental supporter, but I even drive my car a mile away to my job. So it's not realistic for people to not drive their cars. So I'm conceptually support the project, but I do think it needs to be toned down, scaled back, because the impact on what is an extremely residential neighborhood, let alone the school, the baseball fields, the park, is going to be, it's going to be chaos. The amount of traffic is going to be unsustainable. Water, again, I'm almost out of time, so I'll just skip that, but you know, there are real concerns about that too. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have we made a connection with the other speakers who were trying to get on before?
I'm going to do that while the next speaker is on. So let me find the next speaker. Miss Matthews, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, feel free to start whenever you're ready.
So I mentioned at a previous meeting that I had, and if you hear any extra voice, that's my toddler with me. So I work at the charter school that's right at Crankbait Park. And I believe that most of my concerns that I raised in the meeting regarding the safety of our students and our families have been addressed. Although we are still in discussions about what school openings are going to look like. The main question that I had, which I'm not sure if it's an appropriate zoning question, was for the applicant to clarify the changes or improvements that they wanted to see in Crank Park. So I'm not sure if that's an appropriate question for this forum or if that's for another meeting, but that's the main question that I had, because I didn't hear about that part in the last presentation that I was a part of.
I would say that perhaps the applicants can talk with you directly offline, either by email or telephone, after the meeting or whenever.
That's fine. Thank you so much.
Okay. Zach, are we okay?
What I think I'm going to have to do is the applicant or the speakers on the phone. So what I'm going to do is put up, I think there's a little bit of an echo issue. I'm going to try and put the speaker on my phone speakerphone so they can speak. We'll see if that works with the echoing though.
Okay. The wonders of technology. Even if it goes through 3 or 4 different systems.
Mr. Dunberg, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure if this will work, but we'll try.
Ready when you are.
Go for it.
Good evening. My name is James Dunberg. I live at 86 2nd Avenue. I've lived here for almost 25 years. My wife's family has lived in this house for over 120 years. We choose to live in this neighborhood because we love our homes, our gardens, our green space, our neighbors. We could afford to live elsewhere, but we choose to live here where home is. My family and I have owned the mobile gas station on the corner of Madison and Lark for almost 35 years. I also co-run a clock shop in Schenectady. I have been a businessman long enough to know how to make it a success and what a good investment is and what isn't. And given the current state of the economy and the COVID virus, I know that the city is looking to improve here. It's not good business at all. If you look at the Capital District, New York State, and the county, the country, people are quickly staying or moving into 1- and 2-family homes, not densely populated apartment complexes. Today, CNN business headline says that the COVID is driving millennials out of the cities and into the suburbs and rural homes. The apartment complexes in Albany that are high occupancy are renovated old buildings, not newly built ones. Mortar shopping is almost non-existent anymore. The McDonald's or the Rite Aid on South Pearl couldn't make it, neither could the Stewart's on Morton or Save-A-Lot on Delaware Avenue, and they are in the middle of residential neighborhoods. What makes South End development in the city think that this proposed zoning change and the project will be any different? If the planning board members are afraid to meet face-to-face in a large room with masks due to COVID, why would you decide to recommend a zoning change that would allow COVID hotspots to be built in the middle of a currently safe residential neighborhood? Isn't that kind of counterintuitive? To me, this feels like a shotgun wedding. Our only contact with a developer was one letter with no letterhead, hand-delivered and unsigned. And that's been, other than that, and talking informally to Mr. Hoke, who didn't even identify himself other than just one of the members of the development, that's as far as it's been. What you're doing here is according to the letter of the law. You don't care about anything more than that so that it doesn't come back to haunt you. And finally, I say as a mechanic that I have fixed many, many things over the year, but when a South End development breaks this, there will be no fix for it. So I wish everybody here good luck in thinking about this before they pull the trigger, because to be perfectly honest, there is no turning back. And what you're stuck with is going to be nothing more than what the zoning does not allow for, which is just a giant empty mausoleum like the empty apartments along 787 and the one building that they tore down in Morton and all the other unsuccessfuls. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Zach, do you have comments, recommendations by the staff?
Sorry about that. Sorry about that, just switching back. Let me check just to make sure we don't have any other, doesn't look like we have any other speakers for the project. Or on the project.
Do you have staff report?
Yeah, I just a few quick comments and just some reminders. So Al, I know this was kind of interest to you, just to go back through the change from residential townhouse and mixed use neighborhood edge to mixed use campus institutional, just to see what the changes of use would be. So on this slide, this shows residential uses and civic and institutional uses that are classified in our zoning code. If something is in white, then that means that it's permitted in the residential townhouse, the MUNA, and mixed use campus institutional zoning districts. If it's in the lighter blue, it's something that's not permitted in residential townhouse zoning districts, but is permitted in mixed use neighborhood edge and mixed use campus institutional. And then if something is in the orange color, that means it's not permitted in the residential townhouse zoning district or the mixed use neighborhood edge district, but would be permitted in the mixed use campus institutional district. So I can just go through these fairly quickly, but if any of the board members have questions, feel free to let me know.
You said the light blue is allowed in both districts?
So the light blue are uses that are not permitted in the RT zoning district, but are permitted in the mixed use neighborhood edge and the mixed use campus institutional zoning district.
Okay. And the mixed use neighborhood edge district is currently existing in part of the property.
Yeah, along 2nd Avenue.
Okay.
Board members have any other questions about this slide?
Okay, nope, not for me.
Okay. And so then this slide is commercial uses. Again, same format. So feel free to take a quick look. And if you have any questions, let me know. Any questions?
No, not from me.
And then finally, this is industrial uses and then all of the accessory and temporary uses. Really all the industrial uses are not permitted in the RT or MUNE except for recycling drop-off center, which is permitted as an accessory use in the mixed use neighborhood edge zoning district and would also be an accessory use in the mixed use campus institutional zoning district. And then the majority of the accessory and temporary uses are permitted in both, but some of the changes would permit drive-in or drive-through facilities as well as mobile vendors.
Okay.
So normally this is where I would go through what the planning board reviews, but again, since this is an action that the Common Council takes, I'm just going to go over quickly the review standards that the Common Council uses. It's a little bit confusing because there are some standards that apply to both zoning text amendments and map amendments, and then there are some that are specific to map amendments themselves. Again, since this is standards that only apply to the Common Council, there's not a recommendation for the planning board because there's nothing that the planning board has to abide by when making the recommendation. But when the Common Council looks at this, they consider and weigh the relevance of the consistency with the comprehensive plan, any conflicts with the USDO or the city code, whether the map amendments required by a change conditions, whether it demonstrates a community need, or addresses a demonstrated community need, whether it would improve compatibility among uses and ensure efficient development within the city, whether it would result in a logical and orderly development pattern, whether it would avoid significant adverse impacts on the natural environment, including water, air, noise, stormwater management, wildlife, vegetation, wetlands, and the natural functioning of the environment. And then specific for the map amendment, whether it's compatible with existing and proposed uses surrounding the subject land and is the appropriate zoning district for the land. And then whether it would result in development that is adequately served by public facilities. And this can include, potable water, sewer, stormwater management, solid waste collection, and emergency services. We received a petition on Monday. So I just wanted to make the planning board members aware of this. And I think Amy can add on for anything that I've missed with this. There were a number of property owners that submitted or signed on to the petition. Some of them lived within the proposed zoning map amendment. Some of them lived within 100 feet of the zoning map amendment, and some of them lived outside of 100 feet or don't live in the subject properties. So there is a portion in the USDO that allows people to submit a petition to protest a zoning map amendment. And if certain criteria are met, that would require the Common Council to approve a map amendment by a supermajority or 3/4 of the entire Common Council. The one that may apply, one of the triggers for that is whether more than if property owners that own more than 20% of the land that is within 100 feet of the proposed zoning map amendment sign on, then that would trigger it. Based on Amy's kind of knowledge of zoning map amendments and petitions, there has been case law that has used city streets as part of that percentage. So I'll let Amy speak to that a little bit more. Amy, if I missed anything, feel free to jump in.
No, I think you explained it really well. And just looking at the map, the total area that you're comparing it to would be just that, pinkish purple shaded ring around the new zoning areas. So if the property owners who, if they own more than 20% of the area of that purplish zone, then it would require the protest petition.
What is the significance of the yellow interior?
So the yellow for interior, this is just something that we I quickly put together in MapGeo, which is our parcel map viewer. So just when you select a property, the lot lines just turn to yellow. So the properties in yellow are the ones that are included in the zoning map amendment.
Okay.
And so the properties in black are the ones where property owners have signed the petition and are within 100 feet. And so this kind of measures out the portion of the property that is within the 100-foot buffer of the zoning map amendment. So it doesn't include their entire property. It just includes the component that is within the 100 feet. Whether the Common Council acknowledges the petition as meeting that criteria, that's up to them. But I just wanted to make the planning board aware, just so you're up to date, since that was part of a public comment that was submitted yesterday.
So what I'm looking at then, or what we're looking at, whoops.
Nope, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, is that the ones in the dark gray or black, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 properties. And you're saying that based on that, there is sufficient square footage for this to be a legitimate petition.
Yeah, so even to back up and just clarify a little bit more, all of the properties that are outlined in red are within 100 feet of the proposed zoning map amendment. And
Correct.
so the ones that are shaded black or the grayish color are ones that have signed on. And so what we've done is measured the portion of the property that's within 100 feet for all the properties outlined in red. And so when you add up, I think it's about 8-ish properties that have signed on. That accounts to 35% of the total area of the properties outlined in red. That percentage would change though if city streets were included in that calculation. And that would likely put it under the threshold. But again, that's for the Common Council to make that determination of whether they feel that meets the criteria. And just to be clear, there were more people that signed the petition that would be included on the map. It's just, it was this threshold that was the one that, the only one that seemed like it would potentially meet that threshold based on the signatures.
Right, okay.
And, oh, go ahead, Martin. I think that was Martin. Sorry, I can't see.
No, it wasn't me.
Oh. Did anyone else have questions before we move on to? Okay. And again, since this is a little bit different, since this is a recommendation to the Common Council, these are the 4 advisory notes that we're that planning staff is recommending to the planning board to then pass along to the Common Council. The first just being giving consideration to removing the portions of the proposed amendment that front 2nd Avenue to limit visual impacts on adjacent properties. We've heard this from a number of public speakers in the past. And I think based on the design from the applicant, they were looking to set back the modified building that was closer to 2nd Avenue. So there could be ways where they could still maintain the height, but modify the property so that they, again, are respecting the visual impacts that the development might have while still allowing for the density that the applicant's seeking for that building. The second advisory note is just that effort should be taken to ensure that all existing residents that choose to remain in their homes can do so without being negatively impacted. This again speaks to just kind of visual noise impacts during construction and post-construction, and when businesses start to operate at the site, making sure that these residents can still enjoy living at their properties and do so again without negative impacts. The third advisory note is just the analysis of the map amendment by the Common Council should consider the full breadth and potential build out scenarios, including but not limited to the 76 project. I mean, as we've seen for the presentation, there have been, some slight changes, some larger changes to the project. So just making sure that the Common Council analyzes the full extent of what the zoning map amendment could allow for. And there are going to be natural changes that can happen with this project, or if there's a different project in the future, just making sure that that's analyzed. So it's a complete seeker analysis, and that kind of gives property owners nearby a fuller sense of what could happen at the site, while also making it easier for the applicant to go through the seeker process and not have to potentially go back to the Common Council to provide a technical memo for seeker or do any adjustments based on any changes in the design or in the uses. And then the last one is to avoid the perception of spot zoning. A clear articulation should be made of the unique circumstances that make this site location and rezoning appropriate, as distinguished from other sites that may exhibit similar features and conditions. Again, this is just going to be part of the seeker analysis that the Common Council does. And this is a component for zoning map amendments that are done, in the city and in other municipalities a lot of times. So again, just making sure that the Common Council is cognizant of this and bearing that in mind when they review the zoning map amendment, as well as the seeker for the zoning map amendment, as well as the other applications that'll be going through the planning board.
Is that the extent of the recommendations?
These are the advisory notes. For planning staff, our recommendation is a positive one with these advisory notes.
Okay. Does the members of the board, do they have any questions or comments to address these items, or to Zach, or to our council, our corporation council regarding this?
I definitely agree with the advisory notes, especially 3. I mean, that's a bit of a concern of mine, is that we need to think about what might happen if this project, for whatever reason, doesn't go ahead. Not of course that we'd ever want to see that, but that's something that I think it's our responsibility to take into consideration. So the analysis should include that.
Other comments?
What is the strength of an advisory note? What impact does it have on if we have a recommendation, but then we have the recommended advisory notes? So what is the strength of an advisory note?
Roman, I can respond to that. The planning board's recommendation and the role in the process of the planning board is advisory. The Common Council does not have to take up our recommendations at all. I think that the strength of some advisory notes is really just to draw their attention to particular issues that they should pay attention to.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Other issues, questions? Okay, if we are finished with that, do the applicants want to make any comments based on what you heard, any corrections, any other items that you wanted to discuss that you saw in the comments by either the public or by the members of the board?
I guess my comment would be, I'm not exactly sure that I completely understand what the recommendations are of the staff. So if we look at the first one, consideration to removing portions of the proposed amendment, I'm just not sure that I'm following what exactly you're saying. Are you saying we're changing the amendment area? Your recommendation is that the amendment area get changed or the building A gets changed?
Yeah, just to provide some clarification. So
Thank
the
you.
portion, yeah, the portion of Second Avenue is already zoned mixed use neighborhood edge. And the property that the applicant is proposing to build the structure on that is closest to Second Avenue is set back 30 feet. So there are potential ways to subdivide a portion of that property so that there could be properties fronting Second Avenue that are still within the mixed use neighborhood edge zoning district, but it would still allow for the applicant to construct the building that they're proposing. So kind of allowing for what the applicant's seeking, but also respecting some of the comments we've heard from members of the public related to visual aspects and character along Second Avenue.
Are we just talking about setbacks, like pulling the building back that we're proposing? Because I think we already had that at 32 feet.
Yeah, the applicant had proposed setting the building back 32 feet. So there could be ways to subdivide the property that it's currently on so that the portion that's closest to Second Avenue and the ones that are still fronting Second Avenue still remain mixed use neighborhood edge, but then the portions to the rear of that would be rezoned to the mixed use campus institutional. And some of that is in response to what's being proposed, but also just the potential of what could be proposed in the future.
Any other questions? All right. I will entertain okay, go on.
Sorry, can I just respond to some of the public comment that we received?
Yeah.
So in response to Jessica Gorman's comments about parking and traffic specifically, so we've done a very thorough traffic and parking demand report. And in that report, it actually shows that the level of services of the adjacent intersections are functioning very well, with the exception of two locations. So it's the intersection of Leonard and Leonard and Second Avenue. And we've modified our design to mitigate that and reduce that delay. And then the only other intersection that has less than a level of service of C and D is First Ave and South Pearl Street. And we're actually only changing the delay by 2 seconds. So the way that we have designed our development and the way that we're promoting different transportation demand alternatives as well as access to public transit, we are having very minimal impact to the adjacent roadway network traffic and intersection function. And then in response to the comment about reliance on single occupancy vehicles, this is going to be the most sustainable multifamily commercial mixed use development in the United States. So it's not going to be just standard, like obviously we're going to have people from the neighborhood that we're hoping to attract to live in this development, but it's also going to target highly sustainably motivated individuals. And we do anticipate that based upon the access to public transit, we're also going to have a significant carpooling program for both residents and employees of the facility. And we're also going to be targeting having a car share program with electric vehicles that will be available to residents to rent out. And so all of those options we do feel will greatly reduce the reliance on single occupancy vehicles to minimize impacts to traffic. And then one last thing related to her comment about the water and stormwater component. So your property at the over along First Ave and Elmendorf Street. So we do know and we have identified that there is a low point at the rear of your property, and that currently has a 15-inch culvert that actually directly discharges to the city's combined sewer. And so we are working closely with the water department, and that's one of the areas where we're looking at potential offsite improvements. And we want to help to mitigate that ponded water there and actually discharge it to what currently is a somewhat separate storm sewer in that area that could help to minimize that impact there.
Okay, any other? Alrighty then. Based on the comments by the planning staff and the recommendations and the testimony we've heard, do I have a motion to approve a recommendation to alter the zoning on the site to mixed use commercial? I'm sorry, to mixed use campus institutional.
Okay, good. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Martin Hall and seconded by Roman Kuchera. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And aye, so it's unanimous.
Hey, Al, just before we move on, can I just ask to clarify whether the planning board wants to accept all of the recommended advisory notes or not with that vote?
I thought that was implied in the approval with those advisory notes. Absolutely.
Could we just get a verbal confirmation? Sorry for being nitpicky, but I just want to make sure that we're clarifying that, just in case, you know, you want to remove one of the advisory notes.
Okay, board members, Roman.
Yes.
And Chris Ellis.
Yes.
Okay, and Chairman is yes also. All righty, we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is number 62 Dana Avenue. The applicant is RJF Real Estate Holdings, LLC, and this is in a residential townhouse zoning district. This is the first appearance at the public meeting, although we did see this issue on our previous workshop. The proposal here is to convert a 2-family townhouse into a 3-family townhouse. Okay, is the applicant available for presentation?
I promoted Sarah to a panelist, and Sarah, let me know if someone else is on that needs to get promoted, or if someone's else giving the presentation and you're just an attendee.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I also have Ron Stein, who's also the owner, who's online. If he wants to speak, you might want to put him on as a panelist.
And he's now a panelist.
Okay.
And you are Sarah Mayo?
I'm Sarah Mayu. Yep, I'm with C2 Design Group, the architect of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Can we go to the next slide so I can start talking about it?
Yep.
Okay. So As mentioned, we're looking to convert this 2-family townhouse into a 3-family townhouse. We're looking to renovate the basement unit into a 3rd apartment unit. And we're proposing to do a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, pretty open floor plan. We would need to add a new entry and concrete stair along the front of Dana, which is pretty consistent in that area. We did adjust the plan based on comments from the workshop of the tenant trash area. You can see that kind of in the front entry. We made a trash area for the residents to kind of hide it off the street a little bit. And the next couple slides are just images and pictures that we have taken of the site itself. These are a couple exterior photos. 62 Dana is that green building in the middle. We were just showing the basement windows in the front, the sill level of them. We would be putting the stairs from that first window closest to the first floor stairs, and we're going to put the concrete stairs going down underneath those wood stairs in the front. The next slide shows the interior, just to show that we comply with the 50% above grade requirement. Here we show us taking measurements of the windowsill at 3'9", and from the ceiling to the windowsill is 4'1", so it shows the ratio from above grade to below grade. I don't know if Ron has anything to say on top of that, but that is our plan for this building, to convert it into for the basement unit.
Other than, you know, we are trying to, as we have been all across Park South, continue to improve the overall units themselves, redoing the interior kitchens, bathrooms, and living areas, floors. So that this adding the unit just helps us to make this a cost viable solution, and adds, you know, we have demand in the area, so for these kind of units still. So it just helps with just consistently now fixing up the townhomes in the area, other than putting in the multi-unit apartment buildings.
Okay, questions to the applicants from the board?
Nope.
Okay. You are, how many units or how many houses are you working on? You one by one, or have you done a bunch in the Park South area?
Well, I'm the owner of the Reserve 1 and the Reserve 2, which is just, the Reserve 1 is the 30-unit apartment building more towards New Scotland, and Reserve 2 is the 36-unit building that just completed, and is actually being, the tenants are moving in as we speak.
Okay. Alrighty, recommendation by the staff. Are there any, I'm sorry, are there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this?
No one signed up.
Okay.
So normally for conditional use permits, there's a number of review standards, but there's also specific dimensional requirements for conversions from 1 to 2 family, or 1 to 3 family, and 2 to 3 family homes. So I'm just going to go through some of those now. We did receive comments from Councilmember Conti expressing some concerns about the application. And I'll go through the review standards, and that'll maybe speak to some of the concerns. The first dimensional requirement is that the building has at least 3 stories. And when you go back to the exterior, from the outside, it looks like it has 2.5 stories. but based on our definition for basements within the USDO, basements do count towards a story, so that would qualify. I think the second one is maybe the most involved, or speaks to a lot of the council members' concerns, which says that no exterior changes to the structure are visible from a public right-of-way. So currently, as you look at the front facade right there, there are no steps currently to the dwelling unit, and there is no door to the dwelling unit either. So those are some things that kind of are up to interpretation for the board of whether they feel the construction of stairs down to the basement, as well as the installation of a door when there is not one, would meet those standards. I mean, certainly I think there are design solutions where the door could be inset, so you could not see it from the public right-of-way. But I think that's potentially where there are some concerns of approving this, or whether it's something that would require an area variance or a modification in design. We've also seen or heard some recommendations of referring this to our engineering division as well, just to make sure that they would permit this to begin with, because if they would not permit it, then we would likely have to suggest doing some sort of solution or access that's internal to the building. The third one is whether new and existing units have at least a minimum of 1,000 square feet per unit, or occupy at least 80% of a single floor plate, which that complies with, and all the other units do as well. And then the last one is whether the lowest story is at least 50% above grade. Based on the pictures submitted, it appears to be. I think this is something that our department's been wanting to work on more, is actually doing a site visit with the applicant to take pictures and do the measurements. I think in the past, it's been a little bit difficult for applicants to verify that, showing the ground of the unit to the ceiling of the unit. So in some ways it would simplify it if, you know, a member of our staff or the building department was able to go to the unit just to confirm this. And I think there could be opportunities as well, just to tie in, you know, any other relevant departments. In this case, it's engineering, since they're proposing to make modifications within the right-of-way. So right now, our recommendations to defer, just so that when we're going through this, we can just clean up some loose ends in making sure that we're providing the most complete information on the height of the unit internally. And that'll also give us some time just to refer this to our engineering division to get any comments. And if another solution needs to be looked into, mainly internal access to the unit, then that'll allow the time to revise their application as well. And finally, just for providing an elevation just to show what the proposed staircase would look like, and if you would be able to see a change to the existing structure through the installation of the new door.
How do we reconcile number 2? Item number 2 on the staff comments, which it says no exterior changes to the structure are visible from the public right-of-way. But if you build a set of steps, that's visible. The steps in themselves are visible. I mean, obviously you need the steps to get up and down, and but you're actually changing the building. So how do we reconcile that?
I think that's based a little bit on an interpretation and the design that the applicant proposes on whether the stairs are connected to the principal structure or not. Because this is really speaking to whether any exterior changes to the structure are visible from the public right of way. So I think if it's a staircase that's independent of the principal structure, I feel like that would be a way for the applicant to comply, while also being able to access the basement from the front of the building. Again, I think we're going to have to see more in terms of the design for the actual entry itself and whether that'll be visible or not from the public right of way. So I think we just need to get a little bit more information in terms of going to the unit, seeing a design of the proposed entry and staircase, as well as just confirming that our engineering division would permit that.
Well, I don't want to get into a semantic argument, and certainly the project makes sense, at least this initial go around. But I'm still trying to figure out how exterior steps wouldn't be part of the building. You said, it's something like not attached to the building or not part of the building, but once you build them, they're part of the building.
Well, I mean, since they're in the public right of way, they're not necessarily connected. I mean, if it was like a walk-up, then yes, I would say that would be a modification to the structure. But since this is digging out the right of way or a portion of the right of way to build the steps, it could be an independent structure that the applicant's proposing. So again, it's a lot of this is based on the design.
Okay. So this is a deferment. This is just our first look at this, and we obviously will see it later.
Are there any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that just one question on that 50% below grade? How does it work when the property's on a slope, so that, let's say the front is at grade and the rear of the lowest level is below grade? Do you prorate it across the entire basement level, or how would you do that?
We've been measuring from the front of the unit. And again, based on the pictures that were sent by the applicant, it seems like they're meeting this. Again, I think once we go to visit the unit, I think we can take those measurements in the front and in the back to assess that. But, for all the other conversions that we've done so far, we've been measuring it from the front of the unit.
Okay, any other questions? All right, those first two items were on the public hearing agenda. We now move to the public meeting agenda. We have two items on this one. And the first one is 236 Clinton Avenue and 255 Orange Street. And we have seen this twice in public meetings and also in workshops. And once again, since I have a minor interest in an investment in the Community Loan Fund, which is one of the partners in this project, I will ask that Martin take the meeting over for this project. And I will leave the room and you can call me when you're done.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's see. Let's get the presentation started then.
Yeah. So again, similar to the workshop, this is a very quick discussion. The applicant has submitted items to the water department that have to be referred to Albany County Department of Health, as well as New York State DEC, and they're still in the process of reviewing this. So the board doesn't, all of the relevant departments haven't provided us approval letters for the project. So from our staff opinion, we would not recommend the board taking any action on this. The applicant is trying to submit an application to New York State Homes and Community Renewal. And that application needs to be submitted in late August. So a potential option that we can run by the planning board is to make the currently scheduled workshop on the 11th a meeting as well, so that it gives more time for the Department of Health and DEC to comment.
So that would be the next meeting, the next workshop meeting?
That would be the workshop, yeah. And so, and if we get to a point where we're at the workshop and the water department has not heard back from Albany County Department of Health or DEC, they are considering, excuse me, they are considering doing a conditional approval for that. Again, we would like to kind of remain within the bounds and not start to create bad habits for this. So that's why we're proposing using either a portion of the workshop or just rescheduling that as a meeting in total for the 11th. So I think just really
so do we have to decide that now, or would we decide that at the workshop meeting? Could we just set aside a few minutes at that point?
We would just have to notice,
yes, that's right.
That as a dual workshop and meeting. So I would just kind of turn to, I know Martin, you're on vacation.
Yes.
So I guess we would have to look to Chris and Roman, and I'll have to follow up with Glenisa later on to confirm that she's available. But I would ask.
Now, do we expect that that we definitely will hear from the water division and whoever else that needs to respond by the workshop?
From what we've heard from the water department, DEC has acknowledged receipt, but I don't believe they've begun to review the materials yet. So it's not a guarantee, but I mean, based on the timelines before, this is why we're proposing this as an option. The only reason that we wouldn't be doing this at just the next meeting in general is just they would be past their application deadline. And they also need to go to the Historic Resources Commission to get a certificate of appropriateness for this. So timing wise, it would just make more sense.
Okay, I'll leave it up to Roman and Chris then. So, what do you guys want to do? What do you think? Should we set aside a piece of the next meeting or the workshop meeting rather as an official meeting in order to give these guys their approval?
Zach, can you send out the information to the public that it would be a combination, and then if we needed to change it, we could just change it, but wouldn't it be better to be prepared and send out the advisory up front?
Yeah, we can do that. It's more just checking your availability just for quorum, since Al has to recuse himself and Martin's on vacation. It's just making sure that there are the necessary 3. So
do we have to pass any sort of resolution to say that to create that meeting, or can we just do that based on consensus here?
Yeah, that can be based on consensus.
Okay.
Really, it's we just like to send out stuff, at least a week ahead of time to our listserv and post it on the website at least a week ahead of time. But really, that's the only constraint since this has been noticed.
So you have to get in touch with Glenisa anyway, right? So we could maybe do this by email.
I mean, if there's, it might be good just to get an okay just for me to look into this, or just to say yes, and then if not, I can just send a notice that it's been canceled.
Okay. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, yes. Go ahead.
That's the 11th, right? August 11th.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know at this point, I'm available. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Chris, are you available?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, good. Did we have any members of the public who wanted to speak on this one? Just in case.
No one has signed up.
Okay, then I guess we should bring Al back in.
Yeah, let me call him.
Okay, our last item on the agenda is 11 Anderson Drive. This one, as you know, we saw in public meeting on the 22nd of June, and also at a workshop. And the proposal here is by the Albany Realty Company to basically develop an area for an outdoor heavy vehicle storage area. The proposal here for tonight is for us also to defer this, but I believe that we are looking at this in case there's concerns or comments by the board or by the public.
Yeah, so I'll step in just to clarify a little bit. The applicant's still working to address comments for the water department. The applicant hasn't received all the department approval letters that they need. This application is within 500 feet of the municipal boundary with the town of Colony. So since this normally gets referred to the Albany County Planning Board, and they recommend that we send notice for a time and place that residents in the town of Colony can comment, this is serving that function. Notice was sent to the town clerk as well as the director of planning and economic development for the town of Colony. And this is just because it aligns with section 239-NN, which requires notice for public hearings related to site plan review within 500 feet of a municipal boundary. Since the planning board here technically does not have public hearings, but has public meetings. This normally does not apply, but the county planning board likes to recommend that, just kind of in the spirit of that. So this is why we've sent out this notice and provided this opportunity, just so that when we refer to the county planning board, it'll have addressed that comment ahead of time.
Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on this?
No one has signed up.
Okay. So I believe that unless there are other items that come before the board, we can ask for an adjournment. But before that, I wanted to make sure, although I know I'm not involved in the 255 Orange Street, 236 Clinton Avenue project, will there be people here that you can move on this if necessary at the next meeting?
Yeah, so Martin's going to be on vacation in a way, but Chris and Roman said they're available. I need to reach out to Glenisa just to confirm her availability. But I think the intent is to go forward and notice, and then for some reason, if quorum can't be met for the meeting, then we can just cancel, because it's better to have more lead time to schedule the meeting. You don't need as much time to cancel the meeting. So,
okay, thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And aye. Thank you very much, and thank you to the members of the public who are listening in and testifying. And And well, now I'll be leaving the meeting.
Okay. Very good.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care. Goodbye. Have a good night.